Bonnie Blue flag and carrying me back into Virginia.
For those of you who have never been here to Old St. Paul Cemetery, it's one of the last, and it is the largest 18th century cemetery left in Baltimore. Many of the illustrious Revolutionary War, War of 1812 officers, soldiers, and of course the most famous people buried here are these two gentlemen. Lieutenant Colonel George Armistead, the commander of Fort McHenry during the War of 1812, and his famous nephew, Lewis Addison Armistead of Gettysburg fame, whom we all know on July 3rd as they breached the Union lines on Cemetery Ridge, the final invasion of the North by the rebel army was thwarted. And Lewis Armistead received 2 wounds. There were superficial wounds. He was expected to make a full recovery, but he died from heat exhaustion of the day. And so he was buried on the site near where he fell. And then a month later, mysteriously, friends of his here in Baltimore went up to Gettysburg and took his body and brought it back here and buried it secretly, we believe, one night. There are no accounts of the body being brought here and buried. One of the reasons is the Union Provost Marshal here in Baltimore would often attend these Southern funerals and do a roundup arrest of suspected sympathizers with the South. So we think that's why he was buried here in secret. But these two gentlemen are part of the most famous people who are buried here. So what I've done is prepared a little letter from Mr. Armistead. Throughout Maryland are thousands of Civil War veteran graves and historic burial grounds yet to be found, recorded and remembered as we celebrate one of those veterans, Brigadier General Lewis Addison Armistead, here at Baltimore's most famous burial ground, Old St. Paul Cemetery of the Second Presbyterian Church, where we are today. For nearly 4 years when the war raged around Maryland, the voices of soldiers, the fifes and drums of regimental music, and company flags, unfurled to the breezes, continued to play no more. Herein with this sacred burial ground are the quiet voices of our past. Like those of the Revolution, they returned to their private pursuits as farmers, mariners, political and martial pursuits, until they too passed on, leaving only their reputations and the records of their lives. Here within these high protective stone walls are many of the citizens who were veterans of another war, 50 years earlier, during the War of 1812, one that has a direct ancestral line to Lewis, that of his uncle Lieutenant Colonel George Armistead, commander of Fort McHenry, as we know him as the guardian of the Star-Spangled Banner. In the various scenes that unfolded here in Baltimore nearly 200 years ago during our second conflict known as the War of 1812, and the subsequent defense support McHenry that have put to the test the constancy of the nation, this officer and those buried here within these hallowed grounds rank among the most distinguished for their devotion to duty in the public cause. And like his uncle Lewis Armistead, had the satisfaction to reflect that he boldly and promptly espoused the resort to arms, for no honorable choice remained. That he and his band of brothers found the courage and fortitude as their own rampart against the assaults of an enterprising force, until the immortal burial here that brought their lives to an honorable conclusion in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Lewis Armistead fought to preserve his uncle's legacy in the expression of his own beliefs under yet another flag. Yet both were employed in the same country and shared beliefs under one God whose divine providence each believed in wholeheartedly. Many of their achievements and those who rest here under the quiet enclosures of these historic walls, or now who rest underneath the shade of these trees, find that their duty and honorable lives have been today remembered on this 3rd day of August in the year 1013. So may these two gentlemen officers rest in peace in their narrow beds, covered by verdure ever fresh and wildflowers ever blooming, and may the kindest dew of heaven distill upon their graves an emblem of our own tears. Niles Weekly Register, 1814. This is, as I said earlier, this is very rare that the cemetery is open.